So today we're going to be doing a Cessna 152 pre-flight inspection. When you get out to the plane, our checklists are in the glove box, which is over on the right side here. And there's going to be two different ones. We've got our pre-flight checklist, and then just the regular checklist for in-flight before starting engine and everything here. We're just going with the pre-flight inspection, so we'll be using this card for now. So first thing we get out here, aircraft acceptance. We want to make sure we have our takeoff data completed. That's actually going to be done before you come out to the aircraft on your weight and balance sheet. You should already have all your takeoff data completed. The other thing will be maintenance status. Maintenance status is when we check out the plane, your instructor will find out all the maintenance status reports when he checks out the plane. Next thing we want to do is log our hobs and tack time. Hobs and tack time is, your hobs is down here and your tack time is in the tachometer. It's two different ones. We want to make sure we log them before we get out here and start anything, so we have the correct start time for our flight. Next thing is aircraft documents. Aircraft documents, some will be right down here, and others may be behind the seat. This one has it behind the seat. So we want to make sure we have our airworthiness certificate. When you're looking at the airworthiness certificate, you want to make sure it's for the correct airplane. We're in 67404, and this one is 67404, so we have the correct airworthiness certificate. Also the registration. Want to check it, make sure 67404 is good, and then check the date of the registration. This registration is good through April 30th of 2021. So we are current on our registration and our airworthiness certificates. When you put them back, you always want to put it back with the airworthiness certificate on the outside showing. That document has to be showing at all times so passengers can see it. Then we want to verify we have our POH, operating handbook. For the aircraft, this is for 67404. We have it in here. And then our weight and balance. Not the weight and balance that you fill out for your flight. This is the aircraft weight and balance. Should be inside the airplane. And 67404. This is where we got our basic empty weight and moment for you to do your weight and balance. So we have all of our documents that are required. So aircraft acceptance, that part is done, so completed. Now we do our interior inspection. Control lock remove. Our control lock is what locks the controls so our ailerons and elevator can't move. So we're going to pull it up and out, and then we can stick it behind the seat, either in the seat pocket or just lay it on the floor. Starting key. I'm going to take the starting key and put it up on the dash. That way we know that the key is not in, the magnetos aren't on, or anything while you're doing the pre-flight. And then verify mags are off. Mags are down here where the key goes, and it should be towards off. All switches off, so we're going to verify all of our switches are off here, and avionics are off. Then we're going to go battery switch on. Battery switch is the switch on the right of the two red switches. So we'll turn it on. Check the fuel quantities, make sure that they have moved off of the 0. Interior lights at night, we don't need to do that during the day, but you can check them at night. Exterior lights on and checked, so we're going to turn on all of our lights. Hey, can you fact check that? and the pitot heat. Okay? And then I will also go ahead and lower the flaps. Watch your head there. At this time. And then we'll go out and check our lights real quick. We don't want to leave the battery on too long, so we'll walk around and do our light check. So we get out of the plane, come on over, verify we got our red nav light, position light is working. This one has strobes and the strobe is working. We'll walk to the back of the plane, verify the beacon is on, and the white positioning light is on. And then we'll walk over to the other wing. Strobe is on. Green positioning light is on, so we're good. And your landing light. This one has both landing and taxi lights. Some planes only have one light on it, but this one has two. And then we check our pitot heat real quick. So this will get hot, so you don't want to sit there and grab a hold of it. You just want to, you might be able to just feel the heat coming off of it or just touching it real quick and feeling it. You don't want to sit there and grab it because it will burn you. And then we're going to go back in. And we're going to turn all the switches back off. And the battery off. And then we're going to make sure the elevator trim is set for takeoff. The elevator trim is down here. And just make sure it sits within the takeoff limit. There's a little square box here that you look for to make sure it's in takeoff. All right. Next thing we're going to do is fuselage. So we'll step out of the plane. First thing we check is our door. We're going to make sure the door shuts and latches. And then we're going to check our hinges, make sure all the screws are in and tight. And the hinges don't look bent or anything. Okay? And then we'll work on the left side of the fuselage. So we'll work our way back. All we're doing is we're looking for any damage that may have occurred. Maybe overnight winds gusted up and something got blown into the side of the plane or something. Work our way back. Then we're going to check, make sure all the screws are in. All the way around. And this one have a data plate. Usually there's a data plate back here.
Might be on the other side. Sometimes you may find them on the other side.
Okay. And then we're just going to check for any damage. Working our way along. Look for any damage done. And verify our counterbalance weight is in the tip here. Verify all the nuts are on each bolt for the elevator. When we grab a hold of the rudder, never ever grab by the trim down here. That's a fixed trim. That will bend back and forth. If you start playing with that, you're going to mess up the trim of the airplane, so the yaw will be off. So always grab by the rudder up higher. And we want to check our elevator here, making sure we have full range of movement, going all the way to the stop, and then checking our cable connections, making sure they look good. We're also going to check the rudder, make sure it has full range of motion, and its cable connections. Also with the rudder, checking all the nuts are on, and counterweight balance is in also. Then we'll work our way on over to the next side. Normally, a plane will be tied down. We'd untie the tail at this time too, but But we're inside a hangar, so we don't have tie downs, but we could untie the tail. And trim tab, we want to verify it's connected, the bolt's in, and cotter pin is in. Working on around. If it's set for takeoff, your trim should be even right here. Once again, checking counterbalance on this side is in. No damage. And working our way across, and here's the data plate on this side. So, got the data plate over on this side. All the screws are in. And then just working our way forward. Want to check, make sure ELT antenna looks good. Our nav radio antennas are good up on the tail here. And our comm radio. That's our communication radio up here. And then underneath is our transponder. And then we'll show you the ADSB. It's up front. It's just a little like wire hanging down with a ball on it. We'll show you that in a little bit. So now we come to the right wing. So the checklist starts with the door and hinges. I kind of go a little bit different just because I don't want to go forward and then work my way backwards. I'm already back here, so I'm going to go ahead and check my flap. There should be a little bit of movement. You want that. You don't want to walk up and grab it and you can't move it, then it's jammed. So you should have a little bit of play here. Okay? And then we can check our push rod from this side, but then we're going to step underneath. And check our rollers. Rollers are little sleeves that go over the bolts in here so the tracks don't cut into the bolt. And they spin. You want to make sure that they look in good condition and the flap is all the way down so it's fully extended. There should be no gaps in here. We got our push rod here for the flaps. You should have a little bit of play on it, so you should be able to twist it back and forth a little bit. Once again, if you grab it and you can't twist it, you need to have maintenance look at it. And then checking the rollers on this one and making sure full extension. We'll come out to the aileron. So we want to look, verifying there's no damage on the top part and or the bottom part. Looks good. On the hinges, there's two different types of way the hinges can be secured. Some will have cotter pins that stick through on each end, and others will have a pin that goes through that wraps underneath a bolt. This one looks like it's all the type that has the one pin going through and it loops underneath the bolt. So we'll come back underneath and verify. So we're going to look up. I always keep one hand on the aileron. That way if the wind's strong or somebody walks by on the other side and grabs it and pulls down, if I got my finger up there, I don't want it to get smashed, okay? So I always keep one hand on here and check the pin is through and underneath the nut here. This one is too, and then I want to verify a little bit of play on this push rod too. So it should move back and forth. And then I'm going to check this connection for the hinges, and it's underneath the nut also and secure. We also have counterbalances here. I want to make sure that they're in place. Okay. Then we'll move on to wingtip. We're just verifying the wingtip has no damage also. And then if there was cracks, you can see there's some cracks here. If there's a crack, usually they drill a hole at the end of the crack so that crack can't continue. We'll work our way down the leading edge, looking for any damage. roof ventilation port. This is for air to come in, comes into the cabin up here, so we have some fresh air and cooling while we're flying. During the winter, sometimes they'll tape over these with speed tape to keep it warmer in here for us. Then we could untie the plane here too, so we'd untie the tie down. And then we want to, I always check underneath, checking all the access ports, making sure they all have their screws in. And there's multiple access points all along the underside of the wing. Then we'll check our door, struts and latches. Hinges look good. And then we're going to check our tire and brakes. So we want to verify our tire looks good, has good tread on it, no bald spots on it where a cord is showing or anything. So, and it looks properly inflated. We're going to check our brakes. This is the disc of the brake here. You want to look at it, looking for any grooves or gouges in the brake. And then the brake pads sit on either side of the disc. Those are what grab the disc to slow us down and stop us. So they should have good, not be real thin. We're also looking for any brake fluid that may be leaking. If you have a leak, brake fluid is red. So we want to look and see if we see any red fluid dripping down and on the ground. We also want to verify the nut on our wheel is secure and has the cotter pin in it also. You want to definitely make sure it's in, because you don't want that nut to come loose. You rotate and see your tire bouncing down the runway beside you. Okay. Then we go on to the nose. We're going to check our windshield, make sure there's no damage to it. Also, seeing if it's clean or not. If it's dirty, we need to clean it. There's nothing worse than having a whole bunch of bug splats on there and you're trying to fly, especially at night, and not being able to pick up airplanes or anything else. So make sure it's clean and not damaged. We're going to check the right side of the cowling. We want to verify all the cam locks are in and tight. We're going to check our engine oil. So we open up here. 152 is 4 to 6 quarts. So we pull the dipstick up. I leave it in because you can leave it still in the hole and just twist it to see and then verify how many quarts of oil you have. When we tighten it, we bring it down to where it just touches and then only about a quarter turn. You don't want to tighten it down real tight. If you tighten it down real tight, you go fly, the pressure will build up in there, the next person will come and won't be able to loosen it. So, till it touches and then about a quarter turn. Then we're going to check our tire, make sure it looks good on this side, properly inflated. We're going to check our steering rod, make sure it has some play connected, and the shimmy damper. This is your shimmy damper here. Want to verify it's connected. If it's not, you don't want that because the shimmy damper keeps our wheel straight during taxi, landings, takeoffs, everything. It will hold it straight. So, and keeps it from vibrating. We also want to check our exhaust stack, make sure it's taut. You don't need to really crank on it, you just want to grab it and just give it a little tug. Then we work on up to the front, our propeller and spinner. Spinner is here. We just want to make sure it's on, all the screws are in. Once again, you're not really torquing on it or anything, you just want to make sure it's tight. And all the screws are in. On the propeller, we want to check and make sure there's no dings or anything from rocks or anything might have blown up into it, a bird strike or anything. So we check along the edge here, but also the back side for any damage, and the front on both sides. Engineer inlets. The engine inlets are here and here. We want to look up in there and verify that they're not clogged. Especially if a plane is sit for a while, if you had bad weather days and it's sit for a couple of days or something, birds love to climb up inside here and build nests, or even rats or anything if it's been a long time. So you want to look in here and verify there's no nest and it's clear.
Also, when you're looking in the oil, check inside there as well.
Right. And then alternator belt. Alternator belt's right here. We want to verify that it's taut, not real loose. And one thing I like to do is I'll pull the prop through a couple times and watching the belt, because we can only see about this much of that belt. So I like to pull the prop through and verify that there's no chunks out of that belt. Huh?
Because it can't start.
So I'll pull it through a couple times, just watching the belt as it goes around, and making sure there's no chunks out of it. Next thing we want to check is our air filter. Air filter sits down underneath here. So we're going to check it, make sure it's in place, make sure there's no rips or tears in it, and make sure it's not clogged. This is where the fresh air comes in and goes back into the carburetor. So you don't want it clogged, you don't want it ripped or torn, because then if it's ripped or torn, dirt can go back in there and get into the carburetor, which is not good. Then we're going to check the nose wheel and tire on the left side. Once again, verifying it looks good condition. Our oil strut should be roughly 3 fingers, at least. Let's make sure it's properly filled. Check our steering rod. Got a little play. And then we're going to check the cowling on the left side. Once again, just verifying all the cam locks are in place and screws. Good. Then the static port. Static port is here. We just want to look at it and look in and try to see, make sure it doesn't look clogged. Don't sit there and rub your finger over it, because you can have dirt and oil and stuff on your finger. You rub your finger over it, you're just jamming that into your static port and you're going to clog it. Then we'll move on to the left wing. Ring root ventilation. Make sure it's clear so we can get good ventilation in the plane. Working our way down, come to the fuel tube. Want to verify it's not clogged. And the drain port looks not clogged. Working on down, we come to our stall warning vane. We want to verify that it's not clogged. And our fuel vent sits right back behind the ring strut here. If it's during the summer, it's been sitting a while, it's normal for the fuel to drip out of the vane, okay? That's perfectly normal, especially after they fuel it. If they just filled it up, you're going to see fuel dripping out of the fuel vent. Don't worry about that, that's fine. Then we can untie this wing and continue working down, just looking for any damage. Wingtip, verifying no damage. And then the aileron, we're going to do the same this side as we did on the right wing. Just going to look for any damage. Any damage. And this one has the 2 cotter pins holding on the hinges here. This would be the other type. And then this one is cotter pinned also. So we'll come back underneath, verify our counterbalance weights are in, and verify those cotter pins are coming all the way through and locked. Working on down, should have a little play in it. This one has the pin that comes underneath the nut. It's secure and locked. And then this one has the cotter pins in it. And looks good. Then we work on to the flap. Once again, it's got a little play. We're good. And check our rollers. They look good and it's fully extended. It's all the way down. Push rod. This one's a little tighter, but I can still move it, so it's okay. But it's a little tighter. And then checking the rollers here. Then we'll check our wheels. Still got good tread. The brake looks good. Brake pads look good. And no hydraulic fluid, brake fluid dripping. Good. And the nut is secure with the cotter pin. So we're good on this wheel. Now we want to check our fuel. Normally what I have my students do when I have them come out, first thing I want them to do is check the fuel first on how much fuel we have and the oil. That way, if we need fuel, they can go get the fueler and he can come out and be fueling, or while we're waiting for him to come out and fuel, we can be doing our pre-flight, not wasting time. So we need to check our fuel. So, check our fuel, got a handle here, a step here, and we're going to come up here. Our fuel caps, we also want to check our fuel caps. Our fuel caps are vented. So you can see the little red rubber piece here. You want to make sure that that's in place all the time. If that's not there, you don't want to fly because the fuel could get sucked out of the wing. So check the fuel, take our dipstick, put it in, put our thumb over the top, and pull it out. And this one is at 12 gallons right now. And then just release your thumb and the fuel will go back in. Cap on, make sure it's tight, and it should be running straight back with the airplane. We do the same thing to the right wing, but I'm not going to do that. I'm too old. But then we do need to check to make sure there's no water in the fuel. So we have to strain our fuel. Right here's the fuel strainer. We insert the metal piece up into it and just push it up. And then we want to verify that it doesn't continue to run after we pull out the fuel strainer. Then we'll bring the fuel out, and then we're going to verify first the color. We should have 100 low lead, which is blue, and then we're looking for any water. Water is heavier, so it would sit at the bottom of the fuel. So that one's good. Let me do this one too. Then we'll check the fuel tank on this side. Come out, verify there's no water in it. And then we have to strain one more underneath the nose. So we need to open up here. There's a handle here, the old strainer drain handle. You want to have your hand on it. And then underneath here is a pipe that comes down for it. Put it inside, pull. And then verify that the fuel has stopped coming out also. And then once again, checking to make sure there's no water and that the color is still staying blue. Then we can take this and pour it back into the wing. And you want me to show them water in the fuel?
No, that's fine.
Okay. So then when you go to pour the fuel back in, if you notice on the fuel strainer here, there's a screen and then 2 holes and then the main hole. We always pour from this side back in so that screen holds any debris in the fuel. All right, so now we're done with the pre-flight inspection.